So, dear high esteemed colleagues, thanks for being with us. Thanks for taking a decision to share your time at COP28 in the Ukrainian pavilion in this event, which is dedicated to the decarbonization of the Ukraine's economy and the results of Ukraine's pathway to net zero into the 2030 and 2050 dimensions were presented yesterday. And today we have an exclusive opportunity to have a deep dive into the modeling process, which become a ground of the National Energy and Climate Plan of Ukraine, and also the decarbonization scenarios of the Ukraine National and Climate Plan, and also the Ukraine Facility Plan as well. As you may know, Ukraine, as a counterpart of energy community, has an obligation to prepare the National Energy Climate Plan just to fulfill the obligations under the Green Deal agenda, also the European Union accession process. And these decarbonization scenarios are very crucial, important part of all of this work. And of course, the time schedule of preparing the National Energy and Climate Plan and Ukraine's facility plan are synchronized because it's dedicated to have the predictable financing of the Ukrainian economic recovery events till the 2027. And today we have an exclusive opportunity to talk with the Nazar Holod. He is the country director of the Net Zero World Initiative from the PNNL. So, Mr. Nazar, can you hear us, and can you, I'm passing the floor to you.
Thank you, Olha. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for organizing this panel. I'm the country coordinator of the Net Zero World Initiative in Ukraine. So the Net Zero World Initiative is a flagship international initiative of the US Department of Energy. This is a collaboration between 9 US government agencies and 10 DOE national laboratories. So our mission is to create and implement technical and investment pathways to accelerate transition towards net zero. As you know, Ukraine joined the Net Zero World Initiative at COP26 in Glasgow. However, because of the Russian military invasion and full-scale war, Ukraine's participation was postponed. So basically, we started working with Ukraine only this spring. So as you know, the government of Ukraine adopted the energy strategy until 2050 that defines directions for decarbonization of the energy sector in Ukraine. So our first activity of the Net Zero World Initiative in Ukraine was energy system-wide modeling to further develop ideas that was outlined in the energy strategy. So the goal was continued with analysis and pathways to achieve net zero by 2050. So today I want just to discuss the process of modeling and consultations with Ukrainian and international partners. First of all, the Ministry of Energy of Ukraine coordinated this activity and I want to say huge thank you again for the support that the ministry provided for this activity. 4 US national laboratories of the US Department of Energy contributed to the study that Minister Halushchenko presented yesterday. These include Argonne National Laboratory, Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, National Renewable Energy Lab, and Pacific Northwest National Lab, where I work. We met with Minister Halushchenko at the first Net Zero World Ministerial meeting in Seattle in August, and reassured that we will deliver the results by COP. And as PNL Director Steve Ashby mentioned yesterday, UE national laboratories are really ready to support the government of Ukraine in this very, very important work. So for the modeling that we presented yesterday, we work with our long-standing partner, the Institute for Economics and Forecasting of the National Academy of Sciences. The institute developed the Times Ukraine model, which was used for this study. And then experts from the DOE national labs helped update and enhance the model. The Times Ukraine model now is one of the best country-level model of this class in the world. When we started modeling, we agreed the results will be publicly available. As you know, the energy strategy of Ukraine is not a public document. So our key principle was transparency of the process, and we conducted extensive stakeholder consultations. So this include, first of all, Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Infrastructure, Ministry of Environment, and the reform support teams of those ministries. We also coordinated with Ukrenergo, DTEC, KPMG, Ukrainian Bioenergy Association, Dixie Group, Eco Action, Eco Club, and then we work with international partners. First of all, this is the United States Agency for International Development, USAID. It's USAID Energy Security Project, Energy Community Secretariat, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, the World Bank, the International Energy Agency, International Atomic Energy Agency, Danish Energy Agency, and many others. We hugely benefited from their contribution of those organizations to our study, and we really appreciate their support. So we conducted intensive consultations at all stages of modeling between May and September. Over 60 people participated in our modeling calls. As the participants of the high-level panel discussed yesterday, the Net Zero World report and approach that we developed for this study is the basis for the development of the National Energy and Climate Plan. We are continuing in more intense consultations now for the development of an ECP, and the Ministry of Economy and the Dixie Group leads this work. So yesterday, Deputy Minister Sobolev discussed some preliminary modeling results of 2 and ECP scenarios. So we use the same model with the same technological assumptions and very similar socioeconomic assumptions to model scenarios for the Net Zero World report and an ECP. The goal of this panel is to provide a deep dive into modeling to understand the underlying assumptions and results. So with that, I would like to pass the floor to my colleagues from the Institute for Economics and Forecasting of the National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine. And as a Net Zero World country coordinator, I'm really proud that we can support this very important work for Ukraine. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Nazar, for taking this words. Yep. Please applause. Thanks. And maybe you can tell us also about your plans for the next years, which you're planning with the Ministry of Energy and other stakeholders, maybe about the other promising topics of research, with, what we can expect from this cooperation the next year.
So as a Net Zero World initiative, we work on several dimensions, several directions in Ukraine. Specifically with modeling, we will continue more sector-oriented modeling in Ukraine. So we will be working on to support the development of, first of all, of the National Energy and Climate Plan, which should be adopted by Ukraine by June of next year. We also will work on more specific sectoral policies. For example, to reduce methane emissions in Ukraine. We will help update the transportation strategy. We are discussing this with the ministry. The Ukrainian government is very interested in hydrogen production, so we'll help model hydrogen as well. We also work on implementation projects. One of the most important part is that we support distributed energy resources deployment in Ukraine. We work with several communities and several companies, and we are going to expand this activity to improve the resiliency of Ukrainian communities. We also work on capacity building. That include on modeling tools, but also to teach students. For example, we work with nuclear engineering students to teach you how to operate nuclear small nuclear module reactors. So we will continue with many other activities, and we are actively discussing with the Ministry of Economy, but also with Ministry of Infrastructure, Ministry of Energy, and Ministry of Environment, our possible activities for the next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Nazar, for managing excellent managing of such promising cooperation. We wish you luck, and I hope that all of that work will support the Ukrainian European Association process. And now I want to pass the floor to Mr. Alexander Yachuk, who is the leading research officer of the Institute of Economics and Forecasting of the National Academy of Science of Ukraine, because I can only assume that that is maybe the first decarbonization scenario modeling during the wartime, during the martial law, when we have not enough data, not sufficient data, especially if we are talking about this year and maybe last 2 years as well. So please tell us how you overcome all of these problems, how you manage the work just to make this huge work complete. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I want to start from thanks to Net Zero World Initiative for US National Labs and of course for Ministry of Energy of Ukraine and US Department also for supporting us in this work. So can you please show our presentation? Yeah, next slide, please. So just the next slide, please. Just how we start to work on this. We worked also with BNNL in our previous US project, and we, as you know, on the start of full-scale invasion of Russia in Ukraine, so around 8 million people left Ukraine, and it's around 20% of Ukrainians. So, and in May this year, it was 5.4 million. So, and GDP reduction was dropped in 2020 by 30%, and over 50% of energy infrastructure, power plants, and so on, and grids was destroyed. So, and another big challenges for us was that a lot of information taken into account security, of course, was closed. So, but we started to work on this. Next slide, and developed three scenarios, key three scenarios. This first scenario is like reference scenario. It's a scenario where Ukraine will be limited to attract necessary investments for recovery of Ukraine in the decarbonization process, and maybe investment will be attracted in fossil fuels too. But we hope these scenarios will be just only hypothetical. So we developed net zero emission scenarios based on two macroeconomic projections, and my colleagues will explain more on the next. First, net zero scenario. We assume that Ukraine can cover a fully domestic demand by renewables and nuclear sources, and will be as part on European Union in near future. And third scenario is a more intensive economic scenario, has the same target net zero emission, but including a lot of possibilities for export industries, for green export, like green steel, hydrogen, fertilizers, electricity, and so on. And we will show you what's the results of this scenario. Next slide, please. We mentioned about NSCP, Nazar mentioned about NSCP, Olga also. So we, as you see, we developed for net zero world, we developed three scenarios, and the same approach we are using for NSCP, just on a different methodological abstraction of how to define scenarios. But we also have for NSCP, we want to be in line with existing Ukraine facility plan, draft of this plan, and also have two scenarios. It's presented in Ukraine facility plan. Base recovery and intensive recovery. So, and this study is in results from this study significantly contribute to more detailed modeling for NSCP. Next slide, please. I want to give floor for my colleagues, Dr. Roman Podolets.
Yes, thank you, Alexander. So now we pass the floor to Dr. Roman Podolets, who is the head of department, the Institute of Economics and Forecasting of the National Academy of Science of Ukraine. And I have actually the same question to you as to Alexander. So how could it possible to make a decision on the approach and assume about the very fragile and unpredictable economic situation during the wartime, because we have not enough data on the turnover because of the uncertainty with the logistic, with the internal domestic energy demand, and so on and so forth. So please give us your speech about this.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I will answer your question and then we'll get back to the presentation because your question is really relevant. I see there are two challenges. First of all, this is the availability of the actual statistic data. Most of the statistic data is not publicly available, although it becomes available, although with a huge delay, let's say for more than 1 year. And of course, we use this data. On the other hand, there is even more bigger challenge is a huge uncertainty as for the future assumptions. For example, future assumptions and the new consequences of the war that we get almost every day, you know, that, for example, the destruction of the Kakhovka dump or occupation of the nuclear power plant, Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, I mean. And every time we have to revise the assumption and to agree those assumptions with the ministries, although ministries also change their vision of solving these issues, well, let's say not every day, but quite often. That's why the only way we can address this issue is just making more sensitivity running more sensitivity analysis or more parametristic analysis, as we say. Well, this is the only way as modeling address this. And now getting back to the presentation, I'll try to be very short. The main what we have to sorry, I did not see my presentation. Well, the most important about the economic and macroeconomic and social assumption is that for economic scenarios, as Sasha said, there are three energy policy scenarios. One of them or two of them are based on the macroeconomic assumptions totally consistent with the energy strategy. Another one with the intensive economic recovery is based on the policy statements, policy announcements that were provided by the ministries and, for example, were presented on the London conference. And as Sasha said, that intensive recovery scenario, they have more ambitious economic growth rates, but also assume hydrogen and so on. Please go to the next scenario. And the main idea of the demographic projection is that, again, we have a huge uncertainty there. Sasha already said that as of May 2023, almost 6 million people left Ukraine. But this is according to the UN data. Because non-official data that there are more than 10 million people left Ukraine for various countries. Mostly of them went to the EU countries and to the North America, but also for other countries as well. And there are then on the one hand we have uncertainty on the migration, although we are trying to consider this migration. But what we unfortunately cannot cover in our calculations is the probability increase in natural mortality. This is not just about Ukrainian army, Ukrainian forces, where this is reasonable or not reasonable, but natural. But for example, the decrease in birth rates and natural mortality of the civilians that, for example, cannot get required treatment in the hospitals. That's why we do not consider those important demographic assumptions. Then according to our global assumption that by the end of after 2025 or by 2025, the war has ended and all captured territories are reintegrated to Ukraine. That's why you see those jump in population in 2025 up to 40 million people. So, and there is a difference between green line shows the base economic recovery and red line shows the intensive economic recovery. So I will try to meet all your questions if you have, but then I will get the floor to my colleagues. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Roman. We definitely will have more question on this. And now we can switch to Andriy Semenyuk, who is a research officer on the Institute of Economics and Forecasting of the National Academy of Science of Ukraine, and switch to the results of this modeling of the energy system. So please tell us what energy mix potentially Ukraine can have in 2030, 2050, if it's possible for us to reach the net zero, what conditions we need to have this, of course. Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you for giving me a word. Please, next slide. And next one. Yes. So we will start from total primary energy supply. And here we see that we have two net zeros. They're a bit different because the demand projections are different, and in the intense scenario the demands are pretty higher, and also because of export of green hydrogen and electricity to the European Union, but also we can see that almost half of the supply consists of renewables and other half is nuclear energy. So that means that we all totally decarbonize our supply. Next slide. In electricity generation, this share of renewable energy is a bit higher. It's 65%, and we can see that the most of all the wind energy onshore and offshore contributes most, but offshore energy is only in the net zero intensive scenario because it's a bit more expensive, and we need, as you know, to wait a couple of years after the war ends to demine our waters. Also, we can see that in the 2030 already we phase out all fossil fuels and even natural gas, and we switch to the use of renewable gases such as biomethane on the thermal power plants and combined heat and power plants, which provide not only the clean electricity but also heat, and which is more important, they provide us with the negative net CO2 emissions. Please, next slide. In total final consumption, we can see that electricity plays a major decarbonization role. We have almost 60% of electricity in the net zero scenario basic, and in the intense it almost 75%. So that means that sector coupling is an important decarbonization strategy, and we need to electrify as much as possible of our demands. Also, we can see the important role of bioenergy and synthetic fuels, which are green hydrogen and biomethane. Next slide, please. So the projections of greenhouse gas emissions are same because we have the same boundaries for greenhouse gas emissions, but we see that intensive scenario with much more higher energy consumption and energy export, it still can be carbon neutral. We see that in 2040 already the power in heat sector is decarbonized. Next is transport sector and buildings. And so in 2050, we only have that hard to abate sectors of industry and supply, which are mitigated by the negative emissions in power sector and by the carbon capture and storages and direct air capture. So those are pretty important technology, because we need to understand that even if we have a lot of nuclear energy, of renewable energy, such as wind and solar, we might have to have a negative emissions because we never can eliminate every kilogram of CO2. So yes, and next slide, please. Total investment. Here we can see the distribution of upfront investments by the years, and we see that intensive scenario is the most investment intensive, but we also need to understand that here we present also a large share of investment to the transport sector, to the retrofit of buildings, which are essentially not the investment, but the end user expenses. Also, this is only upfront investment, but if we speak about total system cost, that gives us the picture that net zero basic scenario is only 3% more expensive than reference one. And total system costs, those are fixed costs, those are variable, and maintenance costs and fuel prices and fees, taxes and subsidies. So that makes that we should go to the decarbonization. Next slide. And I'll pass my.
Yes, thank you, Andriy. So just to make a clarification, yes or no question. So if we can to reach the net zero, and if Ukraine has enough potential into the renewable energy just to be self-sufficient, yes or no?
Yes, because as we could see on the total energy supply, we almost don't have an import of any fuel. So we are pretty self-sufficient. We are very abundant in biomass. We are very abundant in renewable resources. So yes.
Yes, great. And also about the prospects of the nuclear energy under the different scenarios, if it get its competitiveness or maybe lost its competitiveness if we are talking about the nuclear energy.
In our scenarios, we can see that nuclear energy is pretty competitive, even if in the reference scenario. But I might say that it is more important to nuclear energy, not how much the 1 kilowatt cost, but how how facilitating and good financial opportunities and invest in environment in Ukraine, because we can build nuclear with a high investment cost for kilowatt, but with a pretty small cost of capital. But if the capital costs are high, nuclear energy loses its competitive.
Thank you for this very crucial like adding about this all of that energy mix information. And now I want to pass the floor to Mrs. Alla Chebotnikova. She is a senior project manager on energy policy development reform support team to the Ministry of Energy of Ukraine. Because if we are talking about the potential, then we need to talk about where we need to get money. And at that net zero world report, we have provisions and interviews with the financial institutions. So please tell us more about this.
Thank you, Olga. Thank you for introduction. I would start with the idea, which I believe all of you support, that only with the strategies, even genius ones, we will not come to the net zero future without proper financing. So while developing this report, in addition to modeling, we decided to deep dive into potential financial instruments and to talk to our partners, IFIs, global, European, US ones, to understand what are their current projects, their challenges, and which plans do they have in regard to development of green projects in Ukraine. Of course, we appreciate all the efforts which they put now into emergency support, into providing grants and low interest loans for equipment supply, for emergency repairs, and support of electricity generation in Ukraine in the period of massive attacks and war actions. And we also do understand that they still, despite of the wartime, they are developing, participating in development of sustainable green projects, including renewables like wind, solar, biomass, and biofuels, in modernizing of grids, which is also important to reduce wastages and any losses in the grids. We also see that infrastructure projects are in the focus of our partners. You may see the summary of the interviews in the report, but now I would like to highlight 3 insights which we got from the conversations and try to reflect how we as Ukraine are trying to deal with these challenges and insights which we get. So the first, there are good news that our partners are committed to continue the support still in the future. And it may happen only if we are consistent in our policies and behavior. So the second highlight will be predictable policy environment. And decarbonization should be in focus of all the government policies currently. So here we have the energy strategy of Ukraine by 2050 as an important pillar, as well as development of the national NECP plan, which we hope to have approved next year, as well as implementing of the EU acquis into Ukrainian legislation. And we have completed the self-screening this year, and we are expecting to have the screening by European Commission on alignment of Ukrainian legislation with the EU one, and we are working on implementing of key provisions in the energy sector. And you may know that based on the assessment of the European Commission, the energy sector is the most successful in the implementation of the necessary provisions and modern regulations which are in the EU and which we are committed to implement into Ukrainian legislation. And the third highlight would be the importance of ESG, environmental, social, and governance. And we, of course, are also working on this. Recently, together with our expert team in RST, we prepared guidelines for sustainable financing, attracting, gathering all the key provisions of our partner institutions, how to attract the sustainable finance, and we are trying to support our private sector in this with these guidelines to provide them with this knowledge in one place. And we are also working with our partners on green taxonomy as well, to provide this instrumental tool for private sector to develop and submit their projects for green finances. These are these 3 key highlights, but of course we are not going to complete this process by issuing this report. We also have the broader report for the ministry with more details, and we are going to continue this dialogue with our partner institutions as well as private sector, because we do understand that this tremendous amount of investments which we need and will be needing in nearest future, they cannot be covered only by public finances, but private investments are also crucial in our process of recovery and rebuilding of Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alla, for this very valuable insights. And I just want to clarify. Actually, these insights are very useful, and I need to understand what else more we need to implement just to provide our international partners with the confidence that Ukraine is a reliable partner, and we really can get this fund and spend them officially, and so on and so forth. So, what about the climate finance, maybe carbon taxation issues, maybe decarbonization funds, multi-donors, climate funds, and so on and so forth. So do we have some insights from this prospects too?
Yeah, the key issue is to be consistent in the policy development. And I believe that our process of EU accession is aligned with those requirements that you are mentioning. So, of course, we already have some results in this process. I mean, the Decarbonization Fund was established this year, and there are discussions regarding the carbon tax, and we succeeded, for example, in transparency of market functioning by REMIT legislation adoption. And I think that the key issue to be predictable, really. And if we took this commitment, we need to follow and to be consistent in our actions as the government, of course.
Yes, sure. Thank you. Thank you one more time. And we can pass the floor to Svetlana Stushko. He's the acting director of the reform support team of the Ministry of the Environmental Protection. So please tell us what we can do in the overall climate agenda just to make this happen, the most ambitious net zero scenario.
I'm as a representative of the environment part. I think it's not still here, the most ambitious scenario, but I think everyone understands what we are talking about, because basically each speaker, even we talk about the energy sector as a big part of the decarbonization, each speaker was talking about the environment or climate particularly. I would say that starting from March, while we were having this working group together, and the ministry people were on the board of the modeling, with each visiting of the working group and digging deep in this modeling of 3 scenario for energy sector. In the ministry, more and more ambitious were going not only from climate issues, but to environmental issues. So we were discussing in the ministry if this modeling would be interesting now to, because now it's already bigger because of second part of the energy climate plan going on, and all the data in one model times Ukraine, and it can be also used, for example, for CBAM modeling, because now it's really coming very close, and Ukrainian industry have to scope with that, and we need to understand also on at least some available data. And I think that was a great job, and we already have a lot of data studied from 2006 when this model start to get the data. We also in the ministry have been discussed that it would be nice to share this modeling also for the mining sector, which also has a lot of, let's say, problem which might be solved when we start to see on data-based evidence making strategic decisions. The third direction, it could be possibly, as was mentioned about the fund, the Decarbonization Fund. Ministry is now working very actively on the environmental fund, which also will cover other questions which are not covered by Decarbonization Fund. So the financing model of this fund also can be a part of this modeling. As Nazar already mentioned, because we started discussed it much earlier, methane modeling is also one of the key issues for ministry, because as you know, this year have been adopted an action plan because of Ukraine joined to the methane pledge. So it need to reduce methane for 30%. So action plan have been developed, but it's long strategic, and this kind of modeling would, let's say, would make it possible to implement it on practice. So that's the directions I would go, and maybe I will mention one more direction. It's a separate waste management sector, which have been also mentioned today, but not as a separate sector, but as a part of methane and biomethane, yes, of the energy sector. Thank you, Sasha. So this all kind of the direction they touch here very much, but this is a huge parts basically of environmental legislation, which makes this puzzle as a whole policy. So if we would go with our partners to this direction and make this model more complex, then we first of all will have more database. Second, more understanding of the joint policy, not only climate energy but also environment energy. And in my point of view, that would be very ambitious plan to move.
Thank you, Svetlana. So my personal huge thanks goes to you for CBAM mentioning, because that is a part of the ETS system establishing in Ukraine, which is crucially important because of getting access to the European Union markets. And now we are ready to start the Q&A session. So please, if you have a question, just raise your hand and we will move to you.
So I think I know all of you, but Dan Gasper, part of the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory team helping with the Net Zero World Initiative. So first of all, I just want to say this is an amazing body of work done incredibly quickly under the most challenging situation. So you had to make some difficult assumptions about what your energy system is going to look like based on current understanding of technology, right? So SMRs and hydrogen production are maturing, but not there yet. Some other technologies that I saw that you did have in the models, like geothermal and maybe some of the advanced biomass approaches, those seem to have very low adoption rates. So when I look at your technological maturity, kind of how did you make decisions about where those were going to go, what pricing was going to look like, and ultimately, if there are one or two that you think might be underrepresented, where you think there's a big innovation opportunity, what would those be?
Maybe I will start to answer. Yes, of course, it's we in the Times Ukraine model, we have around 2050 different technologies for each sectors and so on. And we take into account some geothermal, but maybe it's not, we need additional data about development of this technology. So, but in our results, we see that geothermal maybe not less competitive comparing to bioenergy technology or electricity heat pumps, for example. Right, and maybe you know that Ministry of Infrastructure developed draft strategy of thermal modernization or retrofitting buildings, where indicated that till 2050 no existing electric boilers, just only heat pumps. So we believe that heat pumps can help us to reduce energy consumption and to decarbonize building sector. And Ukraine have a lot of bioenergy, and maybe because it's much cheaper for Ukraine. But of course, we should work hope to together in improving technology development, because it's questionable, as Andrei said, about a large nuclear. So when we assume that it's around $5,000 per kilowatt of install capacity, it will be fine. But we know that now in Europe it's much higher capacity. But take into account International Energy Agency report or NREL data or Danish Energy Agency data, it can be, we have a different way. So of course, this tool can be improved long time. So because as Roman said, that's real situation is changing and we see new technology and so on. But since to work with you with PNNL and with NREL and Argonne first of all, so we can model it net zero scenario, because a few years ago without improvement of technology development we cannot do can do it. So now its model is ready and ready to improve, of course. Thank you.
So is there a technology that you think is poised to advance more rapidly than your models currently suggest, that might change the makeup of your electricity system in a way that the models don't currently reflect? So I'm asking you to predict the future. It's the hardest thing to predict, I think.
Yeah, but I can say that it's in our approach, we are trying to use some like conservative approach. So because yeah, of course, it's a tools for providing a lot of sensitivity analysis, and we just presented or selected 3 scenarios for Net Zero World report. But before we ran it, a lot of different scenarios, different options. Roman, want to add?
Yeah. So my answer is not probably what you expected, but in our decarbonization scenario, we do see the critical role of hydrogen, which is really essential in order to reach decarbonization, first of all, in the industry, probably in some other sectors, but mostly in industry. And the sources of hydrogen production also is the open question, because our model shows the potential not for the electrolyzers, the commercial, well, not, let's say, economically feasible, but also production of hydrogen from biomass and other sources.
And maybe last, so that according to the net zero scenarios and demand which we project in 2050, and take into account the potential of renewables in Ukraine, bioenergy in Ukraine, and nuclear, we can say that we can cover twice or more our domestic demand. So if it's, but it depends on technology. We should find some best solution to decreasing cost of energy.
Okay, thanks. So we have no silver bullet here. And maybe more questions from the audience? Maybe you can just think about this. And I have a question to Roman Podolets. So maybe you can describe other side economic effects if we are talking about the most ambitious scenario implementing for the social side, maybe like declining the pollution and other side effect if we are talking about the medical issues as well. So yes, from the social economic perspectives.
No, and yes, unfortunately, we didn't do this social economic assessment of our result. Well, this for sure should be included in the preparation of the energy and climate plan, and there we will see the effects, what we could expect for the social, for some social issues, for some social parameters, some for new jobs, for what you just said. What we can expect then, of course, normally when running the decarbonization scenario, then for sure we can talk about the increase in the energy security. For sure we can, well, this is a precondition of those scenarios, of course, but we can expect for the increase of the, for example, real personal income. Of course, we can expect for the new jobs. Of course, we can expect for, well, there should be a shift, of course. This is not just a shift from let's say, common fuels to the or gray jobs to green jobs. But mostly these are normally this is a precondition of the scenarios that we run. Then let us probably still wait for this assessment that we are going to present at the Energy and Climate Plan.
Okay, thank you. So do we have other questions?
So before the war, I know that Ukraine was a large exporter of natural gas-based fertilizer. And I guess I'm curious to understand what your projections say about the possibility of exporting clean fertilizer, and how do you balance the consumption of hydrogen for those sorts of markets versus CHP and other industrial decarbonization approaches?
I might say that we didn't really balance it because it is the model result which sees that fertilizers can be decarbonized using hydrogen, and we will have a bit of hydrogen on the other demands, which are not pretty high because, yeah, again, hydrogen may be more prominent that we predict now. Yes, so we have enough for covering our domestic demand and for covering some export demands.
And just to add, I said before, I can say that maybe we very conservative on the cost of hydrogen technologies and transportation. We really don't know how we can transport it. Ukraine can transport its hydrogen to Europe or to the world. So due to pipelines, due to LNG, some terminals, but or road transport or through the ammonia, it's a challenge. We just only started to work on this. And for example, the Danish Energy Agency, we are working on just preparing some scientific article about possibility to export, but it's very uncertain for us. So it will be good to work if you have additional information on this to include in the model or improve on the model. But it's really important.
Yes. Do we have one more question? Yeah, we have answered.
Yes, just another dig deep into the results for just what we just said, that about 1/3 of the hydrogen produced is according to the third scenario that was presented today. So this is an intensive recovery net zero. So about 1/3 of the hydrogen is produced for domestic consumption, and about 2/3, well, 60% is for abroad, but it's for the export. But this was the precondition according to those announced, let's say, plans or statements as for the export of 3.5 million green hydrogen or green ammonia to the EU. And there is an interest in also to see the structure of technologies for hydrogen production. But in principle, hydrogen is produced at the moment as well, like methane steam reforming, and this hydrogen is used for ammonia production and chemical industry. Then what the model shows that in the near future, we can expect that there would be, let's say, a penetration of some, let's say, combination of the existing technologies with some solar technologies. But the important shift, which we should expect, is the use of, firstly, is the use of biomass, let's say after 2030 or in some mid-term period, and electrolyzers become competitive more in a long-term period, let's say after 2040. Yes, 2040.
Yeah, I would like to add that in accordance with the strategy, decentralization of the energy system generation is one of the key elements. And moving into this direction, obviously the technologies which can ensure this decentralized generation will be developing more rapidly, like biomass projects, biofuel generation, and renewables with some storages. So these technologies will be supported, I mean, by private sector and of course by some government policies, because it's a crucial issue for us to move from the centralized system, which is much vulnerable in current conditions, of course, and to develop more decentralized system, and also to add to the system resilience and to add the capacities which we unfortunately lost to cover the current and growing demand.
Maybe I just want to note that regarding the bioenergy, we want to note that we're working with Bioenergy Association of Ukraine, and bioenergy is first of all feedstock of agriculture sector or energy crops or something. It's not no impact on food security. So it's just only, so we should take into account it's not about until the end of modeling period. It's first of all it's about biogases or biogas or biomethane, not fossil fuels, not combustion in the building, for example. If bioenergy, it's a biogases. So and so it also should notice this.
Yeah, I would also add that utilizing that feedstock from agriculture sector, we might eliminate the methane emissions from it, because methane is more strong greenhouse gas, and when we burn biomass, that makes us net zero, because
Okay, so we have time for one more question. Okay, so I think that we can finish at this top. So the main conclusion which I can draw from this discussion is that Ukraine can reach the net zero. Ukraine can be the self-sufficient into the renewable energy. The main like silver bullet to reach this is to implement fully the European acquis and just to show all of the world that we can be a reliable partner in energy security, guaranteing for all the European Union continent, just to achieve the climate neutrality till 2050. And Mr. Nazar, I think that you can join to us with our final remarks, and yeah. That's all.
Thank you all. Thank you for this great discussion today and for this tremendous work that we have done for preparing this report and now working on the National Energy and Climate Plan. So I just wanted to say that the analysis that we have conducted is just first step, right? We need to convert now analysis into actions and then actions into result. And one of the task of the Net Zero World Initiative is also investment mobilization, what Alla discussed. So we also working with Ukrainian companies, and we are ready to work. We can bring Ukrainian companies projects that they prepared to US and international financial organizations, and we can facilitate this process, kind of to use the approach all in. We need all hands to work to support Ukraine, not only to rebuild its economy after the war, but also to bring it to European state, to be a full member of the EU, and also an energy hub for Europe. So thank you for this, and thank you for this great panel that we have today.
Thank you, Nazar. Thank you, colleagues. I hope that this work will be spread and brought the next year with the CBAM, ETS, and other issues, also with the methane technique issues as well. Thank you for being with us, and yeah, stay tuned with our next reform updates.